At this time, I would like to invite our youth minister, Georgi Funderburk, who many of you have not even seen in person because of the pandemic, because she started mid-pandemic in December. And so Georgi will be offering our word this morning.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. And the crowd of youth came back together again at Discovery Weekend, so that the leaders and band could not even eat. When the leader's family heard, they went out to restrain their loved ones, for people were saying they've gone out of their minds. Look at the way they jump up and down to the music. They are eating pizza again. They're driving where to do what exactly? Youth ministry is filled with weird, loud, crazy activities, interspersed by moments of the divine. It's perhaps my favorite thing about youth ministry, the way in which these wild, out-of-the-box moments lead to the quiet, authentic, life-changing ones. In youth ministry, anything goes. This year has been no exception. In fact, this year, leaders had to reach even further out to recreate our way of doing ministry, as did so many others in all areas of church and life. We've had to find new ways of meeting Jesus, new ways of finding him. We find Jesus today bombarded, as he often is, surrounded by people who want to know him, to be healed by him, to learn from him. He had just been up the mountain where he appointed 12 people as apostles to be with him, to be sent out into the world to proclaim the message, and to have authority to cast out demons. The end of verse 19, just before we pick up today, says, "Then he went home." You know when you get home at the end of a very long, exhausting day, and you just want to drop everything, put on your comfiest clothes, plop down in your favorite lounging place, and do absolutely nothing? I know you know. I can't help but think that that's where Jesus is in this moment. Exhausted, done, just needing some personal space. But the crowd, it gathers again. This is a common theme throughout the Gospels. Jesus goes to rest, to be with God, to pull away from the world, and the world literally follows him. So he had dealt with crowd after crowd, and then he headed home, only to be stopped again by another crowd. And not just the crowd this time, but also the religious elite, who condemned him for the work that he had been doing. Jesus' family is called out to bring him back inside because he's making a fool of himself. He's embarrassing the family and ruining their already strained reputation. They're there to save him from himself, as it were. The elite want to know, where is this young man who showed up in the temple and wanted to learn alongside us? This does not appear to be him. Jesus, he doesn't take the bait, as usual. He flips their narrative on its head, and he points out that a kingdom that is divided against itself, it cannot stand. Likewise, if a church is divided against itself, it cannot stand. We must work together to be able to fulfill the mission of the church. The disciples point out, Jesus, your family has arrived. And instead of welcoming them as we'd expect, even giving them a place of honor, he uses the moment to offer us all an invitation into his family. Church members, people of faith, become family through Jesus. A family is what you make it. no matter what your family may look like. We're in this in-between time of Mother's Day and Father's Day where we say thank you to those who raised us, who supported and encouraged us, who disciplined and then cuddled us, who mentored us. Whether those parental figures are biological, adoptive, neighbors, teachers, or yes, church members. Now, not everyone has the kind of family that they want to celebrate, but in the church we can find that. We can find grandparents who rock us in the nursery, uncles who teach us how to rip up and replace shingles on mission trips, sisters that we cook with in the kitchen, knit prayer shawls with, dig deep into the gospel with. Father figures who walk us into nursing homes and show us the humanity of those that we fear. Mothers who stand with us in unity before God as we say our first prayer aloud. We believe, and so we speak. I love this line that Paul quotes in Corinthians. We believe, and therefore we share it. It's that simple. Now, we have this beautiful building that we come to worship in. But we know that even if this building burns to the ground, that St. John's would still stand. Our work at St. John's is not just for St. John's, but it is for the body of Christ. Our service and dedication is not just for here on earth, but for the eternal church of God. I have been awed in my 7 months here at the amount of volunteers in the youth program. I'm so used to just doing the load by myself, all the leading, the teaching, the planning, that I'm simply at a loss to be in a loss for words, let me say, to be in a place where there are so many adults of all ages who are willing to be a part of the work with our youth. One of the things that I look forward to learning more about is how our youth program interacts with the wider church. How does the youth program work with worship, with outreach, buildings and grounds, mental health? What gifts do our youth have that need to be seen and heard and felt by the wider community? Whether it's in vestry, children's faith, buildings and grounds, altar guild, outreach, one of our many musical groups, we walk together as a family towards a common goal. Jesus said that whoever does the will of God is his family, and that is something to be thankful for. Thankfulness is generated inside of the person. When the psalmist says, "I will give thanks to you, O Lord, with my whole heart," it is an internal feeling. But then it goes on to provide the reasons that they are actually grateful. When I called, you answered me. Though I walk through trouble, you keep me safe. In order to be grateful, we need something outside of ourselves. We cannot generate this feeling on our own. Gratitude is dependent upon others. It is an outward appreciation of what someone else has done. We can be thankful for something apart from anyone else. But gratitude makes us dependent upon others. There is always a need for someone else. We are thankful for the good weather. We are grateful that God gave it to us. We are thankful for the book we're reading. We are grateful for the person who chose to share their story. We need each other, and when we have each other, we are pulled toward gratefulness. Today, we celebrate all of you who have dedicated your time, your resources, your prayer, your labor to the work of the church, specifically here at St. John's. Whether you've made a casserole, spent hours in Zoom meetings, chaperoned a trip, taught a class, hauled mulch, or reworked the rain garden, we are grateful for you. I want to stop a moment and give a special word of gratitude to all of the youth leaders, the members of the Youth Commission, the parents who bring their children here every week, all of you who work so hard to make the spiritual lives of our youth so much richer. We couldn't do it without you. There are many things to be grateful for, and perhaps the thing that I feel most grateful for today is to be a part of a new family, another part of the body of Christ. Perhaps this beautiful poem by the late Anne Weems sums it up best. The Church of Jesus Christ is where a child of God brings a balloon, is where old women come to dance, is where young men see visions and old men dream dreams. The Church of Jesus Christ is where lepers come to be touched, is where the blind see and the deaf hear, is where the lame run and the dying live. The Church of Jesus Christ is where daisies bloom out of barren land, is where children lead and wise men follow, is where mountains are moved and walls come tumbling down. The Church of Jesus Christ is where loaves of bread are stacked in the sanctuary to feed the hungry, is where coats are taken off and put on the backs of the naked, is where shackles are discarded and kings and shepherds sit down to life together. The Church of Jesus Christ is where barefoot children run giggling in procession, is where the minister is ministered unto, is where the anthem of laughter of the congregation and the offering plates are full of people. The Church of Jesus Christ is where people go when they skin their knees or their hearts, is where frogs become princes and Cinderella dances beyond midnight, is where judges don't judge and each child of God is beautiful and precious. The Church of Jesus Christ is where the sea divides for the exiles, is where the ark floats and the lamb lies down with the lion, is where people can disagree and hold hands at the same time. The Church of Jesus Christ is where night is day, is where trumpets and drums and tambourines declare God's goodness, is where lost lambs are found. The Church of Jesus Christ is where people write thank you notes to God, is where work is a holiday, is where seeds are scattered and miracles are grown. The Church of Jesus Christ is where home is where heaven is where a picnic is communion and people break bread together on their knees. The Church of Jesus Christ is where we live responsively toward God's coming. Even on Monday morning, the world will hear an abundance of alleluias. Thanks be to God.